So I just got done assigning and teaching and discussing with my students Flannery O'Connor's short story, A Good Man is Hard to Find. When I think of this short story, I think of dread, or experience dread. I feel it. If you've ever had a nightmare where there's this all-encroaching, all-encompassing, all-consuming feeling of dread, you know that something bad is about to happen and you can feel it stalking you, hunting you, approaching you. That is how this story reads. The tragic, gruesome, macabre end of the story is very clearly foreshadowed at the beginning. There is no artistry there in plotting where you're surprised, but there is artistry in plotting in the sense that you expect it and you just experience dread. I think of this short story in league with or in connection to other Southern Gothic short stories like William Faulkner's A Rose for Emily. I also think of this short story as being sort of akin to Joyce Carol Oates's Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? The title of this short story actually appears in the story itself. It's a line said by Red Sammy. Red Sammy is the owner of a barbecue and like a gas station joint. Red Sammy is talking to the grandmother in this story. A little note on the grandmother: I do not like her. I greatly detest her. I think she is emblematic of false Christianity. The fact is, though, that the grandmother is mildly racist in the way that grandparents stereotypically are. And so let me explain here. I'm not trying to insult your grandparents, but I am trying to say that older generations speak and have like a heuristic for understanding the world that is a little bit dated, a little out of sync with moral standards of the current generation, or ideas of morality, what's right and just and appropriate of the current generation. This story is interesting too because I teach the story in the context of a semester where the overall thematic focus of the semester is nostalgia and loss. And the grandmother in this story is her actions are very motivated by nostalgia. So she longs for the past. A good man is hard to find, right? She wants to go back to that era, that time period where good men existed. Another way that she harkens back or longs for the past is she wants to visit a plantation that she knew as a child. But we discover along with her that this is a false memory. She's remembering a plantation that is not in the state that they are traveling through, Georgia. I think this is interesting too because this idea of nostalgia for the past, she has to create this hidden panel or door, and she advertises it to her son who's driving the car as like, oh, this is a house with a secret door in it. And so we can go there, discover the secret door, its mysteries, its treasures. And that is interesting too because she has to lie about the past in order to make it more appealing. And so I think a general theme is that nostalgia for the past is somewhat of a lie. The past was not this golden halcyon days of yore, but was perhaps a complicated mess that is in the present when you're looking back retrospectively through rose-tinted glasses. Everything appears to be much more anodyne, pleasant, and desirable than it in fact actually was. This short story also does a pretty interesting job of dealing with the theme of religion. So the misfit is kind of billed or portrayed as an antichrist figure. He is someone who revels in doing evil for evil's sake. He says, no pleasure but meanness, and that's his sort of life philosophy. He also talks a lot about Jesus in the story, which I find to be pretty interesting. He says that Jesus threw the world upside down when he resurrected the dead, because he says if Jesus was real, authentic, and genuine, well, there's nothing for us to do but to throw down everything that we're doing in our lives and to try and emulate him, to try and follow his example. But if he's not, if he's a liar, if that didn't actually happen, and this is only a construction, that the only thing to do in life is to hedonistically pursue pleasure and to, if you have to hurt others in the process, do it. That being said, I think the family in this story represents the corrosion or the rot of being Christian in name only. So the grandmother obviously is a self-avowed Christian very strongly. The dad, Bailey, really doesn't have a personality. He's just described as like reading the newspaper sports scores at the beginning of the story. He gets angry often throughout the story. He never appears like he's having a fun time. The mom, who I think goes unnamed, is described as like having a bandana in her hair. I find that to be interesting too, that her identity is so masked. So her identity with her hair, right, is negated with this bandana. Her identity in a name is negated because she doesn't have a name, right? So she doesn't have an identity except for being a mother. The children in this story too are very problematic. So John Wesley is the son, June Star is the daughter, and then there's also a baby as well. John Wesley and June Star there is no other way to describe them except to say that they're brats. An example of the not so great unsavory behavior of the kids is near the end of the story, the car in which they are all driving in crashes as a result of a cat jumping on Bailey and distracting him. June Star climbs from the wreckage and expresses this disappointment that no one was killed. And so that, to me, indicates that she is a little bit uncaring. There's some rot there, right? If you're a Christian family and if you're raising your children to have these good, upstanding Christian values, and then you have a car accident and your daughter expresses disappointment at no one having been killed. I like this short story because I hate almost everyone in it, and I like to hate characters in stories. That being said, I find their murders at the very end of the story to be incredibly sad. So I don't experience any sort of schadenfreude when they die. I don't want it to happen. I kind of want to take that back. I think I experience a little bit of schadenfreude when the grandmother dies at the end. And I also like this story, of course, because it features an antagonist called the Misfit. I mean, how can you not like that? Good man, hard to find. Good short story. Look no further. It's right here. Thanks, Plan.